This is the ABQ Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. Each week we'll interview visionary business leaders to inspire the creative power and spirit that's in every entrepreneur. Discussing strengths, weaknesses, strategies, systems, and the problems we can all solve together for a new future for local small business.
What is up, everyone? Super excited for the show today. We're going to get kind of technical, which will be awesome. We're going to talk about 5G and not the conspiracy theory part, unless Hugh wants to do that. But we're going to get into wireless services, how that affects with COVID-19, major telecom industry changes that are happening, wireless usage, connectivity. We're going to get into all that today. So I'm super excited. Hugh Odom is a former AT&T attorney for over 11 years and the founder and president of Vertical Consultants, a telecom consulting firm that has provided consulting advice for companies Walmart, McDonald's, Disney. He's done for the United States Postal Service, New York Housing Authority, the Veterans Affairs, the City of Atlanta, and the City of Charlotte. So if it's talking about the telecom industry, Hugh knows. Hugh, thanks for being on the ABQ Business Podcast today.
Oh, thank you for allowing us to be part of your program.
Yeah, I kind of want to start off, because I think everybody is into this, like what is 5G? And then you have, and I know you know about this rollout and I know you're an expert in this. So can you kind of explain, like maybe start from the beginning with the whole 5G process?
Well, 5G actually started up about 10 years ago, the first inclination of it, and they started testing about 10 years ago, back in 2010. And the purpose of 5G comes down to two basic, simple points. It's going to basically make everything faster, have everything move at a quicker speed. So just with regards to data that you're able to acquire through your phone or through other wireless devices. And the other point of it is going to provide a lowered latency. And latency, very simply defined, is basically, think if you push a button and it takes a second for that reaction, once you push that button to occur, it goes down to now with 5G, you push a button, it takes a millisecond for that reaction to occur. So 5G is going to make a lot of things possible that aren't really available right now. And what we're right now under, you see a lot of commercial advertisements and things from all the carriers. We are nowhere near real 5G at this point. We need to build out the networks to provide for that. But that's going to provide a lot of things that we don't currently have available to us based upon that ability to build out a network that moves a tremendously faster speed and has a tremendously quicker response time.
Hugh, does it take more towers, or do they have to like update the towers? How does that work?
Sure. Well, you have two basic points with regards to that. That's a good question. Is that right now, if you think of all the towers out there, and there are about approximately about 500,000 cell sites out of the United States right now, give or take a little bit. And what they're having to do with the vast majority of those sites are having to upgrade equipment. Think of it like an automobile. You're changing out the engine to make the car go faster and perform at a better output. And so that's what's happening to existing towers. But in addition to that, you're going to need probably the next 5-6 years to build out almost another 1 million cell sites around the United States. The reason being is, for 5G to have that higher speed and lower latency that I just mentioned, you have to have densification. That means you have to densify the area, the network that exists, and that means you have to build a lot more sites. They have to be a lot closer together. And so what's going to happen over the next several years is they're going to be building a lot of additional cell sites throughout North America to be able to get the speeds and the latency I just mentioned.
Now, do they have to? Because I know there was people talking about, like Verizon or AT&T buying, or leasing part of your property. Is this going to be like a big leasing thing again, and they're going to try to find property, or are they going to use what they've already have existing?
Well, it's a combination of both. And that's where we get involved with our clientele, and we represent everybody. As you mentioned, some very large clients we've had over the years, and have come to us for advice. And we also represent very small clients with regards to individual property owners, schools, churches, municipalities, et cetera. And what's going to happen is twofold. With regards to those property owners who have an existing, let's say a traditional cell tower, when you're driving down the street, you see a cell tower on the side of the street, or you see equipment on top of a building. Those that already exist, what's going to happen is, I mentioned, the AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobiles of the world are going to have to upgrade that equipment. And that provides those possibly provides those property owners a way to renegotiate their existing agreement, and that but based upon how much value is going to be derived from that site. So the existing property owners will see some changes. You're going to see that over the next few years. Probably have already seen it to some degree to date. But you're going to have some opportunities there to renegotiate based upon what's up on your property, not how much space they're using. In addition to that, as I mentioned, there's going to be a tremendous amount of sites built out. That's going to the first inclination of that is going to be mostly built out, not all the time, but mostly built out in existing right-of-ways for municipalities, things of that nature, because that's the quickest way to get it built out quickly, get the first stage of those towers built. But you're going to see, as this continues to grow, is you're going to see a lot of property owners who are going to have the opportunity to lease their property for 5G sites because of the need of that densification and the need of more and more cell sites to make the networks all these companies work off of to work properly.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned churches, and I was just thinking about that, and I never really paid attention. But that seems like something like if they could get reoccurring income, especially these small churches that have a lot of property. Do you guys do a lot with churches?
We do. We get contacted a tremendous amount by churches all across the country, and I will say, churches. We classify churches as an oasis site, just like an oasis in the middle of the desert. Because you think about it, most of course, the older churches were built in kind of the middle of residential areas. Now it's a community place where everybody went there to meet.
Right.
That was one of the places, just like a school, so, to some degree. And so, if you think about it, when you're building out a wireless network and you have these areas that you can't build in somebody's backyard. You can't build a cell tower in somebody's backyard. These churches are that one oasis in the middle of those neighborhoods. And we see churches all around the country come to us and usually already have something on their property, or even they've been engaged to put something on their property, and they're very much undervalued, tremendously undervalued. But you're going to see a lot more, as you mentioned, of churches who have the possibility of renegotiating existing leases, but you're going to see a lot of churches getting contacted because there's going to be a need, just like when they originally built out the cell towers years ago, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, there's going to be a need to put equipment in those areas they can't reach because of the residential restrictions. So churches have a good opportunity across the United States to take advantage of a situation that makes their property very valuable.
So, and I know, especially with you as far as consulting. So, are you the one that goes to AT&T, Verizon? So let's say there's a church and they've been around for 60 years and they've got 2.5 acres and they're in a residential area. Would they contact you to find out if they're available for this, or if they get a letter in the mail from Verizon wanting to meet with an attorney or something like that? How does that process work?
Sure, that's a good question because we get contacted somewhere between 300 to 500 times a week by property owners of all types around the country, and they're saying, "Hey, I have a great location in Charlotte, North Carolina, or Phoenix, Arizona, or Las Vegas, Nevada, or wherever the case may be." And they say, "I have a great location. Can you help me get an AT&T, a Verizon, or whoever out here to lease my land?" And we have to unfortunately say, most likely we can't help you because you can't go to, let's say I called up the guy at AT&T I used to work with and said, "Hey, I got a great site here in Nashville, Tennessee." And his name's Sam. And I say, "Sam, you should use this site for the next build out for AT&T in the Nashville area." He would tell me that it doesn't work that way. An AT&T or Verizon or whoever doesn't go to a location and build their network out around a location. They find a location that fits their build out plan already. So what I would tell a church in your particular example would be that we couldn't go take their property and take it to an AT&T and get them a cell site agreement, but we would be there once somebody knocks on their door, sends them a letter, gives them a phone call, sends them an email, whatever the case may be, and we would be there to help them through the process of negotiating that transaction.
So if a property owner that's listening, because I have a lot of entrepreneurs and property owners and business owners. So if they've been contacted and they haven't cut a deal with them, that's where you guys step in.
Right. If they've been contacted, if they get an initial contact, I tell that we of course would like them to contact us, and and have a discussion of how we can assist them and kind of give them a foundation of what they need to do next. But even if it's not us, we tell this to everybody that they need to reach out to somebody, because the thing here is that most property owners, even if they're sophisticated property owners, they think they're playing the wrong game when they're negotiating with these telecom companies. It's kind of like these property owners are really good baseball players, and they're trying to play football against somebody who plays football every day. And some of those baseball skills will translate to play football, but a guy that plays football and is a football pro athlete, he's going to win that game every day, because it really is a different game. So my suggestion would be, hey, if you get contacted, first of all, the big thing we tell the property owners, because they contact us initially for the most part, is on the financial side. How much should I be getting? What's this worth?
Right.
And I always say that don't worry about what you've been offered. Understand what you're offering the cell tower company or the wireless carrier, whoever has contacted you, because every cell site out there in the United States right now, and every one that will be built, has its own individual value. And Verizon doesn't look, let's say, in Dallas, Texas, and say every site we have in Dallas, and this not only in Dallas, but this is in this zip code within Dallas, has the same value because it's in this area. They look at them individually. So our job is to understand what that particular property owner has to offer that company that's looking to put something on their property, because property owners get the wrong focus. They focus on what's being offered them, understand what's being offered to the other side. I always say, if I offer you $2, but I get $10 for the value out of that $2, who made the better deal? You walk away with $2 in your pocket, but I like that deal every day because I got $10 for the value. Understand what the other guy gets.
Yeah. Is there any horror stories you could share, or something that has happened, like with during negotiations, why they would need a company like yours?
Well, I mean, there's the financial side of it. I'll tell you very quickly. On average, a property owner leaves about between $1.2 million and $1.5 million on the table over the life of the lease. That's how much money they're leaving on the table. From a horror story, the big thing I would tell you is there's two big issues. Is that first is that property owners don't understand exactly what they're agreeing to with regards to impact on their entire property, because a cell tower company will say, I'm going to use 3,000 square feet over here in the corner of your property. And they emphasize it's just over here, it's out of the way. But they enter into an agreement with that cell tower company, that being the property owner, that affects all their property. Because what they're doing is they're not only giving them rights to that 3,000 square feet, the property owner is, but they're also putting restrictions on the rest of their property. I can tell you stories all across the country, from small property owners to very sophisticated property owners, have gotten to agreements by which now they can't develop their property fully, because the cell tower company says you can't do this on the rest of your property because that's going to interfere with what we're doing. They can't refinance their property because they've entered into certain conditions of that agreement that limit what they can do in a refinancing mode. They can't dispose their property fully because what a buyer wants to do on the property is deemed to possibly be in conflict with that cell tower agreement. So those are some things. The other part of that would be liability issues. People get so focused on the money side of this, they don't understand exactly what they're getting into and the exposure they get into with regards to that tower being on their property. And our job is to get it right today financially, put in a structure that gets it right throughout the term of that lease financially for our clients, but also to make the property owner understand what they're agreeing to, and try to limit their exposure as much as possible. I always say, look, if I came to a property owner tomorrow and I said, I'll offer you $1 million, I just have one condition for my $1 million, you would want to know what that $1 million that one condition would be to get my $1 million. Right. You're being asked to sign as a property owner entering into a cell tower agreement, an agreement that's going to last for a very long time and have dozens upon dozens of conditions. You better understand what you're getting into so you understand what you need to get out of it as well.
I'll use this analogy. You probably wouldn't be as crash as this, but it's like you trying to play major league when you're a minor. You haven't even made it to the minors. You're a high school player, because the amount of negotiation that we do as a business owner. Yeah, we do a few little negotiations here and there, but these guys are doing this constantly, day in and day out.
You're exactly right. And the one thing that property owners, sometimes we hear this all the time, is that, I talked to a guy that I know, across town, or that I know,
Right.
over another state, or I've looked this stuff up online and I've done my research. Well, the problem is the guy that may have done the deal 5 years ago, he probably got a bad deal, and all you're doing is following him off the same bridge he jumped off of. That's number
Mm.
one. The second thing is everything you see online, everything you pull up, the AT&T, Verizon, the cell tower companies all across the country know that. They have played this game out over and over and over. They know every step you're going to possibly take. You need to understand what they're thinking, not what you're thinking, because everything that you can pull offline or think or have read here or read there, they have contemplated that for that in the negotiations. So it's really understanding, again, the inside, understanding their playbook, not understanding your playbook.
Yeah, and they're expert. I mean, everything that they're about is shareholder value. So, whenever you're looking, and I kind of want to step back a little bit and go into, because you're kind of an insider, and kind of go into you being a lawyer for AT&T. I mean, AT&T in its name has telegraph. So they've been around a very long time and have become experts at this. What are some of the things that you saw working for AT&T as an attorney?
Well, I think that the big thing as it relates to what we do now is that you have to understand that, as I mentioned before, that they have at one time AT&T was the second largest holder of real estate in the United States behind the federal government. That's how much real estate
Wow.
they controlled. So they had a process by which they were very good about evolving. They would find their weakness in agreements and in situations, and they would cover it. And they would find the next one, and they would find. So they are very good about not only evolving, they were very good about figuring out situations to predict the future as best as possible by putting in pathways and safeguards to make sure they weren't exposed. So my point being is that the thing I learned about AT&T is there's some really smart people there. There's some really smart people in the telecom industry. We praise the guys how smart they are, and we never have said they're not smart people who are any of the cell tower companies, any of the wireless providers, et cetera. We just disagree with how they do business with regards to negotiations with property owners. So the one thing I would say I learned from working with AT&T for almost 11 years, I would tell you that don't underestimate your opponent, because everything, as I mentioned before, you think you may know, they know that you may know. And so they've already
Yeah.
played the game out, like I said, and they spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort to get agreements a certain way and do things a certain way. The agreement they put in front of you, the way they respond, doesn't just fall from the sky. It has been thought out over and over, and their basis, like you said, their basis is to enrich shareholder wealth, which is fine. And so they are doing everything they can to make sure that at the end of the day results in the best agreement for them today and long term.
Yeah, and it's funny, and a lot of people don't realize this, but whatever industry it is, they've built out websites, they have advocates that go on, CNN or CNBC or Fox News and talk about this. I mean, this is a lot bigger than people think as far as the media and branding of that industry to look favorable to other people.
Well, the big thing, I mean, if you got digging a little deeper into this, is that people, we work on the basis of there's two types of tell property owners that the wireless industry is basically two things. It is technology, and everybody we started this conversation with regards to 5G. Everybody's familiar with that, and the technology, the phones, the wireless service, everything you could do, the apps, everything like that. That's the spicy, that's the sexy part of it. That's technology. Then there's infrastructure, and the infrastructure is the build out of everything we deal with, all the backbone of all this. But at the end of the day, all that's being merged for not just to provide you with the ability to make a phone call or download an app or watch a movie. Ultimately, all these companies, from the Verizons to the AT&Ts to the T-Mobiles to Dish Network, who's coming into play, they are there to provide a network to sell you content, because they're trying to. If I use the analogy
Mm.
back years ago, the old Kodak camera, if people are old enough to remember that, they didn't care about selling you the camera. They want to continue to have to be able to sell you the film. And so that's how they make their money.
Right.
And that's the model that we're getting into with regards to the wireless industry as a bigger perspective. And ultimately they want to control not only what phone you use to what service you use, but what content's available to you, and be able to be a part of all those different aspects of your daily life, from work to entertainment to just communication.
So you left AT&T and then you found Vertical Consultants. What was, I kind of got a little bit of the heart of why you did that, but what was some of the major pressing issues, or the reason that you decided to was it because, I can help these business owners, these landowners, or was it there's this huge industry that I can get into, and there's lots of profit to be made? What was the main reason for you to start Vertical Consultants?
Well, I think that the main reason from a global standpoint was that we saw a kind of a disparity between the two groups, the wireless carriers, the cell tower companies, and the property owners. And we saw a way, because we were on the other side of the table for a lot of years, and myself more particularly was on the other side of the table. We saw where, a property owner would hire a local attorney or have somebody try to assist them, and they really were out of their element with regards to that. The person may have done it once, twice, 10 times, but we were doing it every day, day in, day out. So we saw an opportunity was there. We also just wanted to level the playing field for just general property owners. Like you mentioned, starting off this, we do some work or have done consultation for some very big hitters, but we also do it for individuals. And I think we get more joy out of the guy that owns one property. We like the big clients, but we like the small clients
Right.
as well, because we're going to work as hard for both. But the one thing is that guy that has owned one property or has a few properties, that's his lifeblood. That's the biggest thing he owns, most likely. And he wants to make sure he gets the most out of it and protects it as well. And also for me personally, I was kind of when I went to law school and even got out of law school, I was always a transactional attorney. And I was always more business. I love the business part of it more than I love the legal part of it. I like the legal part of it, but I wanted to get something. I was at an age where I wanted to start my own business, and I thought that was a great opportunity that existed, and luckily it was.
Yeah, I want to get into a little bit about cities and municipalities, counties, because they own lots of property. And, a lot of them have their own attorneys, and they would end up using their attorneys, I would imagine, to cut the deal. And then you're leaving, so what if there's a public official that's listening to this, a city, a county, and they have property, or they've been approached, I'd imagine that would probably be huge all across the United States. How does that look? And how do you guys interact? Because I know you've helped Atlanta and Charlotte and some of these others.
Yeah, yes. This is something, like I mentioned with 5G, they're going to see a lot of activity here with the 5G rollout, that being municipalities. This is my next statement is not meant to be disrespectful for any city attorney out there. They don't have enough time to get familiar with what they're getting into to do this the justice it needs to be done with regards to not only financial side of it, but also protection side of it. And what we would tell people is if they're if they're a city administrator or someone inside city government, contact us, contact someone that has a depth in this field.
Thank you for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thanks to our sponsor, RigbyDigital.com. Make sure to subscribe and share, and go to abqpodcast.com. Get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner.